I'm sorry, college basketball fans. You're not getting Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, the rematch.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support if you're an everydayer. We talked about the portal for Mick Cronin yesterday. Today, we'll talk a little bit different things here on the pod. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Join and take a look at the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Where we get started, it's the March Madness, baby. We're getting crazy. We're still dancing. Who cares about Mick Cronin's bunch right now? Because it's about Corey Close and this UCLA Bruins team that is currently in Albany, making a cross-country trek in what is arguably the most stacked regional in any of the college basketball brackets. You could be hard-pressed to find any regional of any sport that is probably as stacked out as it is in just the third and fourth rounds of any tournament in any sport of collegiate athletics. You're looking at Colorado, Iowa on one side, UCLA, LSU on another side. Whoever makes it to the Elite Eight, despite the nation's hope, is going to be a grinded-out battle, whether it's Pac-12 rematch part 3, whether it's the rematch of the national championship game, or if it's something we do not expect, it's going to be fun. I'm here to tell you keys to the UCLA versus LSU game and why I think UCLA is going to pull off and knock off LSU. Despite being higher seeded, having nearly 10 top 25 wins in arguably the most stacked conference in the country, they're underdogs. Let's get to it. Let's roll the tape, right? It's UCLA against Kim Mulkey, who is creating her own waves, own headlines. That's not even going to be a part of this episode today. Who knows what's going on over there? Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson. You've got all the fun stuff. The Haley Van Lith transfer for this defending championship squad, which does not have the same complete roster intact as it did from a year ago, but still they are to not be messed with. They will come smack talk you in the face, which is why you had Ben Bullock of the LA Times write that story about, hey, the smack-talking scout team of the men's side coming in to come prepare UCLA for everything, getting to the Sweet 16. Now it's going to be here. Angel Reese, she can't be doing the ring finger sign. It's only the Sweet 16, but she was waving goodbye to a Middle Tennessee State team that gave them fits in the previous round. Despite LSU dominating that game in the final score, they were down at the break. Not that UCLA didn't struggle in their own right. It's one thing to play Middle Tennessee State. It's another thing for UCLA to play a top 25 team like they did in Creighton and scrap and claw and earn their way to the next round and get their 9th or 10th victory in the top 25 in this 23-24 season. Let's get you guys some keys to this matchup. If you're on YouTube, you can look at this graphic and enjoy it. First, let's talk about it. For UCLA, you've got to hit your threes. Yeah, we're going to talk about why that is important. Number one, hit your three-point shots. I talked about in the last Locked On UCLA episode who's going to be key. We're going to talk about her later. Londynn Jones. She's going to be a big key in this particular one because UCLA, they must hit their threes. They don't live and die by the three usually, but LSU is not a three-point shooting team. It depends sometimes if Van Lith hits some threes. It depends for LSU if they have also Michaela Williams hitting a couple of threes, who leads the team with 37% from downtown. Even Johnson can hit one occasionally from time to time. But they're a team that's going to come at you, pound the rock, force turnovers, and shoot a lot of free throws. And they score a lot of points while doing so. Arguably a top 2, top 3 scoring team in the country, just shy of playing Iowa. They come after you, smack talk, we physical. So it's up to UCLA. Yes, I talked a lot this season about the importance of Lauren Betts. This game is going to be won and lost from UCLA offensively, probably from the perimeter. Who can hit their shots from downtown? Because I looked at the games. LSU comes in with 5 losses. They're 30-5. I looked at 3 specific games. I took out the South Carolina games because, one, they're undefeated and they're number 1 team in the country. We're going to give LSU a pass in those 2 games because It's South Carolina. The common denominators I looked at in games where LSU lost this year that were not South Carolina games, they lost at Mississippi State, which came, I believe, a little after the LSU and South Carolina game, but they went to Mississippi State. What was something that went awry for LSU? Well, they can't shoot threes. They didn't take advantage of a free throw discrepancy because LSU shoots the most free throws per game. You've got Angel Reese, who leads the country in free throws attempted per game, not percentage. She gets to the line again and again and again. But where they struggle is they don't hit threes. Against Mississippi State, they went 3 of 14. Mississippi State, when they played and beat LSU, they hit 9 of 17 from downtown. Auburn, when they beat LSU, 67-62 in the middle of January earlier this year. LSU, 0 for 2 from downtown. Isn't that remarkable? They took 2 threes that whole game and didn't make a single one. Well, Auburn didn't make a lot of threes. They only hit 4, but think of the discrepancy there. A couple of threes, those extra points. LSU, also another big thing there. They shot 25 free throws, made 16, and Auburn in that game only made 11. So you compare apples and oranges, you make a couple threes. You have to make 4 or 5 more 3-point shots than LSU. And what's the difference, right? Well, Auburn won by 5. They're not overblown in the free throw line category. And they made 4 more threes. They won that game by 4 or 5 points. If you have the same amount of shots taken close to free throws, what's going to be the difference? How many shots you make behind a 3-point line. And who remembers the opening night beatdown that Colorado laid on LSU in a neutral site? That was still before some players got kicked off and everything went crazy with Kim Mulkey and company, right? But let's also take one last look. LSU, when they played Colorado, the Buffs hit 10 3-point shots, which I think this is a game UCLA can play more like what Colorado did than maybe like the other 2 games. Colorado shot 44% about from 3, 10 of 23, including an absurd 8 of 13 from downtown in the second half. And most importantly, they shot the same amount of free throws as LSU. So I didn't necessarily combine those 2 statistics, but you've got to shoot the 3. LSU is not going to hit their shots from downtown, and if they do, good night, go home, don't even show up in the second half. But large in part, they're not going to hit a lot of threes. Man, Lith's been struggling. That is not their game. They play physical. The Bruins, that's where Londynn Jones comes in the equation. Charisma Osbourne, Dugalich, right? Even if Kiki Rice splashes a 3, Gabriella Hakis coming through. And if she goes and hits a couple of threes, the collective of those players must hit a bunch of threes. Maybe not a bunch, but this would be a good time for them to hit 9, 10 threes, even if it's not the highest clip. If it's at a somewhat decent percentage, that is where UCLA can get their bread and butter offensively. Not saying that they can't feed Lauren Betts. Even Corey Close in her pregame press conference when they got to Albany, they talked about, I think she said something about 13 points better per game when they get Betts more touches. Even if she doesn't score, just giving her touches, yes, she's got to assert herself down low and be able to withstand the pressure all game from LSU. But UCLA must hit their 3-point shots, and history tells me that they're more likely to do that. Now, another thing, key number 2, stay out of foul trouble. LSU, as I've already said, leads the country in free throws taken, and they have Angel Reese, who takes a bunch of free throws. So they got a team that shoots a lot of free throws. Angel Reese by herself doesn't even average that many points. She averages 13 rebounds, and I lied. I misread that. 18 points, 13 rebounds. So it's not like she's averaging 30 like Caitlin Clark, who could be looming in the Elite 8. 18, that's a solid. They've got like 4 different players averaging double figures who play consistently for Kim Mulkey's bunch. They're very physical. They rebound very well, which is why it's important to stay out of foul trouble. And I think we're going to see a lot more out of UCLA, right? You're going to see the Wallace, the Cam Browns in this game to handle and have a veteran presence in this game. That's what I'm thinking, that this might be a more depth-filled game for the Bruins. They're going to throw as many players out to stay out of foul trouble. And despite committing quite a few fouls against Creighton, the Blue Jays didn't shoot that many free throws. The Bruins did not allow that to happen in their game at home in Pauley Pavilion in the second round. Now, they don't have that advantage. It's on the East Coast. You're not going to have any calls, I think, in this game. But as much as the Bruins can stay out of foul trouble, keep Betts on the floor, not send LSU to the free throw line, do that. And this is where Kiki Rice's ability to cut, get to the paint, score, get to the free throw line where she's perfect this postseason. I think she's hit over 20 plus free throws, not missed a single one in the NCAA tournament. That's where Kiki Rice's ability to get to the cup and get fouled, because you have to hit your threes and not just get absolutely blasted in the free throw line disparity. Who's going to take more free throws? Don't get into foul trouble. Don't lose Lauren Betts. I think we'll see Iowala come out. We're going to see different players. It might seem shocking, I think, even if it's not foul trouble oriented, but to keep throwing different players at these LSU Tigers is going to be key, I think, for Corey Close. So don't let the physicality of this game get to you. Yes, LSU is also one of the better teams when it comes to forcing turnovers. And even in these losses, some of these teams, the Auburns and Colorados and Mississippi States, they had close to 20 turnovers or more. But you can still win if you hit your threes and don't get absolutely crushed shooting free throws. Those two things mean more than UCLA committing turnovers. Even though they play bad when they commit turnovers, you can still beat LSU and turn it over 20 times, which is ridiculous. Absurd that you could do that in a Sweet 16 game, and yet UCLA can come out on top and find a way to do so. Now, what are we going to do next? Who is our key matchup in this game? What am I going to talk about as a final score prediction? I'm going to tell you about that next on Locked On UCLA. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0, and you can see your confidence bloom like springtime flowers. Embrace the season. Join 10 million other men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code LOCKEDON for 20% off plus free shipping. And we love free shipping. That is important. That is important. Just like it is when you're sitting there, you're like, you need a confidence to groom. You get told by that special someone like, hey, it's time. It's spring cleaning season. And you don't want to be stuck with spring fever because you eat that Lawnmower 5.0, hey, it's going to be 5.0, right? Get 20% off with free shipping and the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants. Have you already reached the second round of the tournament and your bracket's busted, but you still want to stay in the game? Introducing Better Together. It's a cooperative daily fantasy platform. You're not sitting there rooting for your buddy or your buddy's rooting for you. Teamwork triumphs talent. And you can play with your friends, not against them. Who's got the better bracket? How about we do it together? I know it's fun to compete, but all you got to do is pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard. Grab a friend and join the social daily fantasy sports movement. Because, hey, you can join it together. If you can watch the game in person, root, put that group chat to the test. See whose is the best and who's got that best mind as well. Because all you got to do is download Better Together now from the App Store. Use the code LOCKEDON for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Play with me in a contest, go through all these crazy things. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. All right, now we're back to the fun, talking about this crucial Sweet 16 matchup. UCLA has only been to a few NCAA Elite Eights prior. I know there's the AIAW years, but, you know, as some coaches and different things, NCAA seems to forget about who's the leading scorer all time on the women's side before Caitlin Clark. Championships with the UCLA Bruins. Won one of those at the moment in the NCAA era of women's sports, which is pretty much mid-1970s and prior. That's where UCLA was good. Not that they haven't been good, but now they're trying to reach a new level of established greatness in the modern game. And to do so, you've got to defeat the defending champions, potentially go through an either good, very good conference foe, and or the darling of the college basketball world and Caitlin Clark, if you make it to the next round, just to get to a Final Four where you might get slotted against some supremely big-time Goliaths. And right now, you got one in the form of Angel Reese, who is an absolute beast when it comes to UCLA trying to stop her, but she's not the key to this matchup. The key matchup in this game for UCLA, which is our third and final key, Londynn Jones versus Hailey Van Lith, as we get back to this Sweet 16 super battle between the Bruins and the Tigers. I'm hoping it's not the first beatdown that a UCLA team gives the LSU Tigers this year across multiple sports. Am I getting ahead of myself? You never know. While we said goodbye to Chip Kelly, maybe Brian Kelly, that's all down the line. For now, Londynn Jones versus Hailey Van Lith. Let's talk about this. In the last episode, I had talked about with Londynn Jones, I think 3 of 21 from 3, but when she's on fire and hitting some shots, the Bruins don't lose. They go outscore teams. They can play some solid defense for sure. They've only allowed 5 second chance points so far in the tournament, which is, I think, some of the best numbers alongside NC State. But when those second chance points are a little tougher to stop against LSU because they just grind and put up free throws and get rebounds because Angel Reese is a double-double machine, and Lauren Betts will be fighting for her life down there in the paint, her basketball life, metaphorically speaking, maybe literally, basketball-wise, just fighting and whatever it might be. It's going to come down to which shooter plays better. Individually, Hailey Van Lith hasn't been as dynamic. She averaged like 19 points per game in her years at Louisville when they went to the Final Four, and I saw that Louisville team in person. But Van Lith is a volume shooter with not a great percentage efficiency-wise, and Londynn Jones is one of the players for UCLA who can be a spark plug, whether it's a dagger 3, hitting 4 or 5 threes against USC that led them to what is now a top 4 win in the country, and when she's on fire, she's ready to go. Van Lith has struggled just as much shooting the basketball in recent games from the floor. She's 2 of 12, 1 of 4 from downtown. Now, if one of those two players breaks it out of this slump, that's the player that's going to help lead them. It's not the Reeses or the Lauren Betts. Kiki Rice is going to be important, just like Flau'jae Johnson will be. But between these two shooters who shoot around 35, 37% for either one of them, if one of those players has a breakout game, I think this either side is going to pull away, win by 10-plus points. If one of the players between Van Lith or Londynn Jones just simply plays better, 15 points to 10 or 8, that is the team that's going to win this game, generally speaking. Now, unless Hailey Lith goes off and for some reason the Bruins are winning big, I don't think that, or Londynn Jones and the opposite for LSU. If one of these two players is hitting their shots, it's big time. Because one, LSU isn't a big-time three-point shooting team, especially when they're not winning games. So Van Lith is hitting her shots outside of what she did against South Carolina, hitting 5 threes in the SEC Tournament Championship game, even though the Tigers still lost that game, then generally speaking, the Bruins are going to get a lot of production from Jones, who could help catch them up or push them further ahead in a battle between two of the nation's top 20 scoring teams. So between Van Lith and Londynn Jones, that is your matchup to look forward. You're going to be looking for the rings and the waving and the bye and the trash talking from Angel Reese. No. You got to look at the transfer from Louisville, got to see Londynn Jones, and see where the veteran guard, who's already been to a Final Four versus Londynn Jones, a wily youngster in one of the deeper tournament runs the Bruins have had against a premier team that's already done it a year ago with some of these players, how can she handle the moment? That is important to see. Because Hailey Van Lith could easily rise to the moment and hit some big-time buckets. At the moment, we'll find out because neither player is shooting well. And whoever plays well, I think, will be an indicator as to who will win the game. One more final thing. As I mentioned, LSU already is an extremely good scoring team. They're number 3. They average 86 points per game, large in part because they hit the free throw line, they steal, they go out in transition, they shoot a crap ton of free throws. It'll be ugly, especially if the NCAA is trying to make it LSU versus Iowa. If they're really just trying to make it happen, it's on the east side of the country. They want that to happen. It'll be ugly. But don't be worried about this because remember, UCLA's got a bunch of wins against top 25 teams. They've also beaten a lot of high-scoring teams. So why haven't I talked a lot of defense in this game other than just foul trouble? Because of the highest-scoring teams in the country. This is on the first page of the NCAA stats website. These are the highest-scoring teams in the country UCLA's already played. UConn, they beat them. UConn's number 11 in the country, 80 points per game. CBU beat them in the first round. Ohio State, they beat Ohio State. They're up 20 at one point. Florida State, they beat Florida State. Utah, they beat Utah twice. That's already 6 wins of teams who are in the top 20 of scoring in the country. Now, they lost to Stanford, and it didn't go well, but Lauren Betts wasn't there. So that's 6-1, and 6-2 if you include that loss to Utah. You go a little further down, you look at Colorado, who's number 30 in terms of scoring offense, put up a bunch of points in a win against LSU. UCLA was able to beat them, right? They were able to get the job done. So that's already 7 different wins, 8 different wins. Even USC, 75 points, the Bruins won, and that was a low-scoring affair when that happened in the double overtime Pac-12 semifinal. That's 9-10. At the bottom, who did UCLA just beat? A team that averages 73 points per game in Creighton. So you look at all these scoring bunches, a lot of the teams UCLA has already beaten who score points because the Bruins simply can outscore teams. What do they do it well? When they feed Betts. Corey Close said it best. We give it to Betts. It feeds out. They can score a bunch, even if Betts is not scoring a lot. It's staying out of trouble, getting her on the floor, giving her touches, London hitting some threes. Charisma Osbourne coming through. If she puts up a superstar 40-point-like performance that will get the nation talking about a superstar, if Kiki Rice is getting to the cup, better yet, triple-double watch, who knows? But it's going to come down to, I think in this game, UCLA outscoring LSU. And they can do so. They're capable. In the top 50 in the country, UCLA slots in number 22, LSU number 3. They've already outscored a lot of really good high-scoring offenses based on average points per game. They've done it like 10 times and only come away with 2 losses. And one of those was an overtime loss at the buzzer, not the buzzer, but the overtime loss to Utah on the road. And then a true road loss to Stanford without Lauren Betts. So generally speaking, when they have a healthy Betts, they're hitting their shots, the Bruins come away with the dub. That's why you probably haven't heard me talk much offense, and which is why I'm going to show you my final prediction of this game. It's going to be a little heated, right? It's going to get fired up. Boom. What am I thinking? 79-70, UCLA beats LSU. There's Kiki Rice celebrating with Lauren Betts. If you're watching, 79-70, I think UCLA wins this game. Mind you, the Bruins, I think, are 3-point dogs in this game, East Coast. Is it really smart to bet against what people want in a year where they're expecting high viewership numbers and they want Iowa and LSU to play? LSU is the first game. UCLA LSU is before the Iowa game. So, mind you, if UCLA can get that job done, it's going to look pretty ugly for Colorado. Think about it. So, I'm not sure they want to all Pac-12 Elite 8. It helps that UCLA is the first game, and I think they're better. Not that LSU is overrated, but I think UCLA has the pieces and the tools this year to keep calm, cool, collected, and get the job done. Now, it's a long trip. It'll be preparing the Bruins for what it's like to play in Big Ten life in years future after this season, which is what this all is coming down to. But for now, for a team that's only made a few other Elite Eights, not since the 2018 season, they'll get the job done. Now we're going to move on and talk about, Will McClendon be a key contributor and on the roster next year for UCLA Hoops, even though he's not in the portal, or anybody for that matter, on Locked On UCLA? All right, this episode's March Madness highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. You're going to love this, UCLA fans, because each week we're picking one team that stands out, which team pushed a little further, just like the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys, the Clemson Tigers, this week's Nissan's Rogue, right? The Nissan Rogue, the team that absolutely surprised us with an all-powerful performance in a Sweet 16 dub over Arizona. Now they get to go take on Alabama with a chance gets to go to the Final Four. They say win life, go rogue, and that's exactly what this Clemson Tiger team has done here. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, we're going to end this episode a little interestingly, right? We're going to talk about, as I discussed in the last Locked On UCLA episode, where Mick Cronin, despite 0 commits and 0 official departures via the portal, he is working on doing things. And whether he has had all of his exit interviews yet, maybe he's gone out and done something different. He went out, tried to find the guys he wants, and he's going to come back and tell the guys he doesn't want to get out of town. I'm not sure what's in his head. he's not doing 5 million interviews right now. He's going to make his team better because he's probably frustrated that his team did not make the tournament for the first time in a very long time of any team he's coached. And that it's in his mind, and probably all of our UCLA fans, despite whatever we thought about some Alford years, some end of the Howland era, Lavin year, whatever it may be, it's just should not be acceptable to not make the tournament. That is what it should be. Yes, we can all joke about the Arizonas of the world, Sweet 16s. We got to make sure this does not happen again. When you head to the Big Ten, it's got to be a consistent thing. Year in, year out. A bad team, that just means they made the tournament, didn't go far. A good team means they overachieved and went deeper in the tournament than expected. But for now, in a reload year in an older era of college basketball, it's okay to have a down year, but that's what it means to turn over and look at your roster. And where we're looking at right now is we're taking a look at Will McClendon. Will McClendon, unique, right? Obviously not someone who's going to move the needle 20 points per game, but maybe his spot being replaced or keeping him could be a difference as a veteran leader, someone who's worked hard to get back on the court, be better, hopefully getting better defensively, and a lot more confident in his three-point shot. So let's take a look at McClendon, who is the redshirt sophomore 6'3" guard currently, now turning into a junior from Vegas, played at Bishop Gorman, someone whose season high was 13 points at Stanford, had 33 minutes played against Oregon State. The most amount of field goals he made was against Utah with 4, did have 9 rebounds in a game against Utah, but largely took 7 to 8 shots. A little bit later in the year, took a bit more shots. But at the end of the season, dating from the USC game at the end of February to the Pac-12 tournament game against Oregon, which is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games ended up being for McClendon and the Bruins. He made 2 3-point shots in 12 attempts. He didn't attempt any against USC, and he wasn't always a volume shooter. So the fact that he had 12 attempts over 6, 7 games isn't shocking, but for somebody who had a lot of confidence, shot well over 40% at one point during the season, end of the year did McClendon, 35% three-point shooter. Now for someone who was, 2 of 20, 2 of 21, whatever it was in his freshman year, give or take a few makes or misses, that uptick in just sheer improvement, confidence, getting back on the court, I was so proud when he was making some key threes against Marquette. And when UCLA played without Mick Cronin against UC Riverside, it was McClendon who stepped up and made sure they didn't get upset by UC Riverside that night. But what was puzzling is that for him, he actually had a better shooting percentage from three-point land than he did from the field. Now, he's not exactly a goal key from Oakland, right, where he's going to shoot 90 billion three-point shots. He still shot another 30 more shots from 2 than he did compared to 3. It didn't go well. Hit a bunch of threes, rebounded nicely, averaged 4 points per game. Is this a spot where I'm glad, I love to see his development? And for UCLA, Mick Cronin, he talked a lot that he's going to surprise people. Is he athletic enough to be a solid Mick Cronin defender? Is he confident enough to take that next step, to shoot more threes, hit him at a clip that if Stefanovic isn't next year, if Andrews isn't hitting 7 threes a game like he was in the Pac-12 tournament, because UCLA needs more scoring. And despite what Andrews did and Stefanovic did at times, you need more than just 2 3-point shooters who might get streaky. The Bruins were a very hot 3-point stretch away at the end of the season from being one of the program's worst 3-point shooting teams ever. And there are worse teams who shot the 3 ball that made the tournament this year. Way worse. So UCLA's got to get better at scoring the basketball. And can they get an uptick in switching things up? And I already talked about some guys Mick Cronin was going after, higher scoring guys, 35% three-point shooters, but they take more volume shots. Maybe they're a little more athletic. Guys that probably have a similar size and stature to what Will McClendon might be asked to do a little bit more. Maybe he might be healthier considering all the struggles McClendon's had to go through with pandemic, the knees, everything. Now, there's nothing to say that he's going to indicate he's going to leave, that indicate he's going to stay, or anything in between. I don't know what's going on in his mind. At this recording of this pod, there's been nothing that says he will leave. He's not been one of those guys like Andrews coming out like, I'm coming back, Lazar, right? Or them posting. But I wonder where Mick Cronin looks at this guy, 4th year in the program, he's been around, can he develop? And I like to take an optimistic view. I don't want to send Will McClendon packing. I'm not going to be that mean. You guys are probably more ruthless and probably will say something in the comments. I would like to see him develop. Now, there is a conversation one could be had that there can be an upgrade. You can find someone who could fill the role better, certainly, but he fits in the program. This is someone who has earned his way on this squad, and despite a sluggish end of the season, from one year to the next, made some vast improvements. So I hope with another off season, that he can make more improvements, hopefully get more range of movement, and take more threes and be like a 40% three-point shooter. Maybe take the same amount, but if you're hitting 40%, that's huge in these games where UCLA lost by 2 against Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament, where they're playing some of these tough teams like Wazoo they were on the road earlier this year, who made the tournament, right? Battling and scrapping and clawing close games, which next year will be in the Big Ten, got to be able to hit some threes. Some of these teams they play, Purdue goes by size. Some of these other teams, they like to play big and score the basketball. What is UCLA going to have to do? They're going to have to hit a couple more threes to win in the Big Ten next year. Not that they can't compete with the USCs, Oregons, Washingtons, and the rest of the Big Ten, but they need to be able to hit a couple threes. So my look is, I'm positive. I'm not going to sit here and go on this pod and say Will McClendon must leave. There can be arguments, one made, one not, about who can be a replacement or not. And I can talk about who might replace. I'm not going to say get out of town. I'd like to see him get to a 40% three-point shooter, consistently make a couple more shots inside the arc. If he doesn't go like Oakland's Mulkey and just shoot unbelievable crazy threes in the tournament, be a firm defender, even better, because UCLA still wasn't the best defensive team Mick Cronin said. They had good analytics, but a lot of the things were saved by a Dembona at the end. And hopefully this is a little intangible. How can you improve your athletic ability, right? He's still growing and becoming more confident. Confidence, athleticism, things you can't necessarily teach. It's mental. It's a lot of stretching, a lot of weightlifting, whatever that looks like for McClendon in the offseason. How does that help? But 40% from 3, add some defensive intangibles, grab rebounds, because the Bruins need a bit stronger rebounding unit as a team, because Dembona's not getting double-doubles. Someone's got to grab the boards. Hopefully McClendon can be a very good rebounding guard later down the stretch if he stays as the UCLA Bruin. I have nothing to indicate that he's not. I have nothing to indicate that he's staying. At the moment, nobody is in the portal from anything I have seen at the recording of this podcast. So I'd like McClendon to return. He becomes a 40% three-point shooter, and UCLA gets some added depth scoring. To improve this roster, sending McClendon packing or keeping him, they're going to need additions. And I'm not sure if a subtraction of Will McClendon is what UCLA needs. He could stay on this roster, but they need more scoring, right? They need so much more. And I think UCLA can do it by finding other ways to mix in players from this year's team and next year's roster. We'll find out who it is. Now remember, who has Mick Cronin not played a lot? Feeble. Is it one of the internationals that's not going to stick around? Is it one of the domestic freshmen that's not going to stick around? That could surprise us with Mick Cronin's antics, right? I don't know. That's all to be decided and found out. But I'd like to see McClendon come back, improve, shoot threes, gain confidence, because 1 year to the next, that was a supreme ask, and he did impress. Now, hopefully he can do that again and again. All right? Disagree with me. Just don't go too crazy, right? All right? Hands up, UCLA fans. I want to be talking Saturday afternoon. UCLA LSU. We're going to talk about it, reaction mode. Either talk some trash, maybe some trash will be talked from the other side. We'll find out, and I'll react to it. So 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins. Beat the Tigers.